Hey, we're back here in the kitchen, and for the first time, there's actually a chef that's talking about cooking, and it's not me. Welcome, everybody. We have the other half of the dynamic duo, Paul. I'm going to get this right. Kirschbaum. Did I get it right?
You got it
Yes.
right.
Yes, the other partner at 1033 Consulting, the other piece of the brain that came up with this stove to strategy guide that is coming out. It might be out. Is it out? Did I miss? I know I didn't miss the grand opening party, but
No,
let
it's
me
something.
see
We're
if
on the
it's out
grand
there.
opening. We're working through a few little things. I mean, it's technically published, but we're working through just a few little things.
It's fine. Soft openings are great. Everybody
Yeah,
likes the soft opening. You get to get in and get a little free food, maybe see the atmosphere. So, that's pretty cool. So everybody will be able to get it pretty soon. But we're going to keep going with this wonderful podcast, and we're going to talk to Paul, and we're going to learn a little bit more about his side of the story of how we got here with this guy. So first off, Paul. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how just tell them the Paul story.
all right. Well, I'll do the quick version because
Okay.
I'm all day. I mean, as simple as I played sports my whole life. I grew up in Texas, and we played football. I thought I was going to go pro.
Yeah.
But so I took all the cupcake classes, like home ec, that I thought was cupcake, was not.
Hmm.
And at our school, we had a culinary department. So I took it was home economics something, but it was cooking. So I took the class figuring, easy A. I
Hmm.
almost failed that class. Yeah, yeah, she challenged me. She gave me, I think if I remember correctly, she gave me a brownie recipe, me and a partner, and I turned it into something else. I turned it into cookies or something. I just was like, I'm not making brownies.
Yeah.
Um, and she goes, "These are delicious, but you didn't follow the task." So out of grace or pity, she didn't fail me. But I remember this clearly walking out of the classroom, and she goes, "Well, you need to go to the CIA," and I'm like the Bang Bang CIA. I had no clue what she was talking about. So long story short, I ended up going to the CIA. Football dreams did not pan out. So I that's where it started. I started basically. Before I went, my dad, who's was German, he uh, he he was really into food. So growing up, he cooked all sorts of stuff. He traveled the world. He was in Hong Kong, Singapore, Vietnam, all over the former Yugoslavia. A lot of time in Spain. So he had a lot of friends in Spain. So he sent me to Spain for a summer to learn how to cook before I went to CIA. Just make sure this is what I wanted to do because he knew how hard the industry is.
Hmm.
And so, I went to did the Spain thing, during San Fermin and Pamplona and San Sebastian. And I know I'm butchering the name because my Spanish is terrible. Lived up in the Pyrenees. It was wonderful. I mean, I'm 18 years old. I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
Uh, then went to CIA and did that fun racket. Got my bachelor's from CIA. I also spent a year in Australia. Got a diploma in management from Le Cordon Bleu, and then I, kind of finally was like, all right, I want to stay in school forever. I didn't want to work. That was to me that's crazy. But everybody, all my friends, when they graduated, they all went and worked at really high end restaurants. They all went to yeah, one of my friends was at Aquavit in New York City, and Le Cirque at the time, and all sorts, all over. I had friends that went to Vegas and went to Europe, and I decided to go get a job as a manager at Applebee's because I wanted to open up a restaurant because I thought that was my route. I wanted to be a restaurant owner.
Hmm.
That I learned out really quickly. I did not want to be a restaurant owner. Um, so eventually moved back into the chef world, became a private chef. Then went back to New York City, and I did a lot of this in Texas, and then went back to New York City right at 30 years old. Kind of started over again. Spent my time as a private chef and started working at a couple restaurants and started helping out some owners. Next thing I know, I'm doing full-blown consulting. Um, did it in New York City, did it in Portland, Maine, did the director of food and beverage gig, did, the executive chef thing. Um, and then I moved on. Probably when I had kids, I got to the point where I wanted a little more weekends home. So I moved over to food service, and I worked as a basically a restaurant consultant. Actually, we did hospitals and all sorts of different
Hmm.
locations, but basically I worked for a large food service company and as their consultant for the Northeast. So I covered, Maine, New Hampshire, Boston, Massachusetts, um, and some of the East Coast at times. So that got me into the consulting world where, I was into 200 restaurants a year, in and out, saw the good, the bad, the ugly, saw great operators, saw opportunity and some opportunities out there. The crazy thing is that I never thought my culinary track would ever turn into a training and consulting track. But I can tell you that it's the most rewarding part of my career is doing what I do now.
Man, that is the audience is probably sitting there like, OD's face just keeps getting more and more shocked as Paul keeps mentioning more and more things that he's done. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll just be honest. I've met Paul before we hung out for the Super Bowl, and I had some of Paul's cooking, and so I'm aware Paul was a chef. Paul was a chef. He's a chef. Tell me Paul's a chef. Great. I was unaware the level of chef that I'm sampling, and Paul made this dragon fire ghost. I don't know what it was, but man, it was some of the hottest stuff that I've ever eaten in my life. But it tasted so good, and the flavors were so full and so rich. And I was listening to you talk about, what you were putting in it and the different flavors, and I'm like, man, this guy's a pretty good chef. He really knows what he's talking about. Now, turns out he really knows what he's talking about, ladies and gentlemen. He's a very top tier chef, and getting into the consulting thing and parlaying. It's kind of funny your story. I don't really want to do this, and now you're like, hey, I love this, and now I'm going to teach everybody else how to do this. Is like one of those stories that I think everybody loves to hear how you just kind of fall into your passion, and you are really good at it. Just to say that.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. It was just wings.
There you go. I was like, I'm sold. I'm sold. Sign me up. I'm putting all my money into the wing restaurant.
Yeah.
But you've done a lot of consulting. You've paired with Leslie. You guys are partnering at 1033 Consulting, doing a lot of wonderful things, opening up a lot of good projects, bringing that part of the industry, just more knowledge and more of a different outlook. And so I really like that about you, and it's really cool hearing that story. But like, how did you and Leslie get together? And then how or what was the spark that made this stove to strategy guide journey kind of kick in?
Oh, well, we met, we're talking 20 years ago now. We met, he hired me to be an executive chef for a pseudo steakhouse golf club that was part of a driving range down in Texas. Um, I was young. I don't know if it was my first executive chef job, but it was definitely the first I was running a bigger team. Um, I came from private. I worked for private residences, and between private and restaurants, there's two different massive difference between cooking. Just it is. I don't in private. I don't have to worry about food costs. I don't have to worry, my food costs was stupid. I mean, I would
Hmm.
fly in, you name it, I'd fly it in. I'd spend $20,000 to $40,000 just on food a month for a family of three.
Jeez.
Yeah, there was no budget. Well, when you go into the restaurants, you learn quickly that there's tight margins. So, meaning Leslie, he hired me, and we basically from the ground where to put the drains to where to put the equipment. We made every single mistake you could possibly make in opening a restaurant and running one too. To be honest with you, I had no business running a kitchen at that age. Or it's not the age; it was really just the experience. I had the team. I had some line cooks that I actually took from Applebee's, and people made fun of me, like, you're not hiring a CIA or a Le Cordon Bleu or somebody out of culinary school. Like, no. I want Fred. Fred can run circles around those guys. Um, I don't need him to create recipes. I need him to run circles around me, which he did.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times he kicked me off the line. He's like, "Get off the line. You go Expo," because he knew he was a master at the line. And then so me and Leslie, like I said, we built built a team, trained the team, got it going. We like I said, made a lot of mistakes, but it was a good learning experience. And then I left. I at one point decided I needed to go to back to New York City. I wanted to give New York a shot, and I had the opportunity. I got really lucky with a like an apartment set up, and I lived in Chelsea, and I was right downtown, and it was the best experience of my life. I was finally, when it comes to culinary, and I'd say any job, I think you need, unless you're a savant. I mean, but any job, I think 10 years is really what you need to do something to kind of really get a full understanding of the job. Not to be, listen, the word expert to me is who calls who what an expert. If I know anything about cooking, I know most about wings and barbecue and stuff, but yet I love foie gras and Spanish jamon. I love the finer things, but it was really just, it clicked. I got to New York and it clicked. Like the whole thing. It wasn't just about the culinary. It wasn't just about everything. It was about food costs and labor and leadership and training and working with the restraints you have, being a chameleon. I learned really early on I did not want to go the fine dining route.
Mhm.
So, in New York, the one thing that was a constant and everywhere I went was I always kept in touch with Leslie.
Mhm.
We are the exact opposite. I don't know if you could tell us if anybody's, you've met us.
Yes.
I am not anything like Leslie. I am pretty much, I'd say, the exact opposite. But that's what makes us successful, because when I bring up something, he would challenge it, and Leslie challenges everything. I mean,
Oh yeah.
he loves to kind of poke holes in things, which I need, because sometimes I need that, like that corrective criticism or the insight or the feedback. Um, so I always kept in touch with Leslie, and I went on my way, and I eventually moved to Maine, and I know he was doing his thing, but we always stayed in touch. And then right before the pandemic, we started talking a lot. We started being much more talking more about the business and what we didn't like and what we liked and what we were seeing, the trends, because that's what I lived. I lived in trends. I was, like I said, talking to 200 restaurants a year. They wanted to know what was happening, and not everybody is on the New York City timeline. They might be living in 2023 when it comes to their food. That's fine. I mean, if they're depending on where they're located, that's fine. But knowing the trends was very important to me. I felt I had a good hold on the food trends and some of the technology. Leslie had a lot on the training and leadership and development, the L&D space. And I was curious about that, because one thing I learned really quickly going into all these restaurants, they brought me in to either engineer their menu or give them some menu ideation or server training, or if it was even technology, what should I use for my back house system or my POS system? Um, but it all ended with one thing every single time, maybe one other than but one. Almost every single client that I was in ended up with starting with them, started with leadership and development. Well, I'm having trouble maintaining servers. Well, they're like, what's the management's not keeping them? I'm like, what are you training the management? Nothing. I'm like, well, it's you. So, saying that in a nice way, I'm being a little blunt here, but saying
Mhm.
that in a nice way, I use Leslie as a resource, because he was the best. From when I was, even when in our 20s, I had no clue what I was doing. One thing
Mhm.
I did see that Leslie was really good at was training and leading the team.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
did not have any trouble with turnover. Again, it was a long time ago, and it was a little easier, but
Mhm.
turnover wasn't a problem. And if anybody here that knows Leslie and knows me, we're not always the easiest at times. It, it wasn't. We still kept them. and I just always remember that. And so in my career, when it came to when I needed some help, or some personal coaching for learning and development, or for training, I went to Leslie. So that's kind of, and then in 2020, right after the pandemic, we both got furloughed. And then I think I was texting at night one night, and we were just going back and forth. And I was like, let's just do a podcast or something. So we did like a YouTube channel before we went back to work, and that's where 1033 started. And one client gave us a lot of work, and next thing you know, I had to leave my job because we were so busy at 1033.
It's funny. I remember that podcast. I remember Leslie sent it to me, and he's like, "Hey, me and this guy Paul did a podcast, and check it out." And I remember watching it on my phone. I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but I remember watching it. And I'm listening to you guys talk, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is why a lot of restaurants suck because like they don't have people like this running the restaurant." And with I met Leslie being in the business with him at a certain point. I'm not going to give people names out of companies here. They don't pay us for that here.
Yeah, why
um
can't I'm quiet?
yeah, I mean, those people, but I met him over there, and that's kind of what I met him doing, is doing leadership, and he taught me a lot about leadership. And if anyone knows me and anyone knows Leslie, me and Leslie are we're very much alike. We're born like a year and an hour apart. And we are both difficult people. Leslie's better at picking hold and stuff than I am. I'm more of this creative side of him that he kind of knows a little bit, but he's like, let's focus on this kind of part. But hearing from him how you guys work well together, being direct opposites, I think it's kind of, and I was thinking of this when I was thinking about the show this week, yin and yang of culinary. And I guess you could say hospitality is what's going on here. And I think it's a beautiful mix. And it's just got this spark of doing greatness. And so y'all's podcast was formed. You got all this work. Where does this book come from?
I think this one's a little gray on my side because Leslie remembers it like it was yesterday. I just remember, and I think we were kind of trying to come up with literally name ideas for something to do with maybe a LinkedIn post or something. I don't remember too much of it. I just remember the phrase. And then it became this. I don't know who. I know he came up with like most of it because maybe we were doing like a webinar or something like that. I think maybe it was something went around that area. Anyway, he came up with Stove to Strategy, the wording.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where it started. Because what we talk about, we talk with operators, we talk with people, we talk to our friends, we talk to restaurateurs. The number one thing is, I love the fact that you can cook. I can teach you how to cook. I need you to know how to lead.
Mm-hmm.
I need a leader in that kitchen. I don't need a trained chef. Most of the time, most places, and I get a lot of heat for this, especially from chefs, friends of mine who are very well-known chefs, give me a lot of crap for this, but I stand strong on it. I was like, not every restaurant needs a chef. And I'd argue most don't. Unless you're a high-end restaurant and you're doing farm to table from scratch, even farm to table to argue, you need a kitchen manager. You need a leader. You need somebody that knows how a kitchen should run. Now, do they need to know culinary? Of course they do. But I don't need them to know how to cook, make a fine dining dish. Like I don't need them to make all the mother sauces. I don't need them to make the best hollandaise. I just need them to follow a recipe, which in time can be hard. I need them to think like that. I want them to think like I shouldn't be cooking. I should be leading, teaching, and growing. And so that's kind of where when he said Stove the Strategy, I'm going to give him credit for this one because I'm pretty sure that was him. And it was, let's get your head out of the dish pin or out of the stove and into building this brand, this beast that you're going to build. Because if you're a small restaurant or a big restaurant, most people open up restaurants with grander ideas, right? Grander goals
Mm-hmm.
to be big, or to be more efficient or better. You can cook the best food in the world, but if you run a 45% food cost, or your labor's through the roof, and the food is not producing enough revenue to cover all the expenses, you need to think strategic. And sometimes we live in the world of silos, where it's just the back of the house, and the front house is just the front of the house, and you get this little tribalism stuff, and everybody's in their own world, and there's a battle, and that can't happen to be for a successful restaurant. Does it happen? Of course. I mean, some people make money beside themselves, and I always say, sales hides all evils. So usually
Hmm.
people don't see the leaks until like the pandemic come along. They're like, oh, I gotta be on a tighter margin, tighter budget, and then these things come to light. So that's kind of where the starter strategy kind of came out of. It was what we believed, and then it got really simple after that. Me and Les, like, we got to write a book about it. It's too
Boom.
cool of a name to waste.
I'm not gonna lie, when he told me about it at first, I was like, wow. Like it flows, it pops, stove the strategy. And then when you know more about the inner workings of it, and then you know more about you guys, and and it is not necessarily just a guide, everybody, for restaurant and hospitality. And I'm going to touch on something and why I say that, because what Paul said is true. I think in a lot of venues and a lot of industries, um, you don't necessarily need a chef for that kitchen to run. You need someone that can manage a kitchen, because that is producing an item that people want. And if all you know how to do is make the best toast, your whole operation is not going to function like you said, like you need it to. And you're going to find those leaks. So, you know, it isn't just about, like you said, who's got the best toast, who runs the best kitchen, I think is what makes a restaurant successful. And talking to you now, I think a little bit about some of the shows that you watch and some of the restaurateurs that I've read about in magazines and stuff. And a lot of them say the same thing. Like a lot of the big high-end restaurateurs, like, yes, they have chefs, but the kitchen manager is an important part of that. And I'm smiling because I'm thinking about a British comedy show that I used to watch about a chef. And he had a kitchen manager, and I think the kitchen manager might have been his wife, but she was really good at managing the kitchen, and he was really good at being the chef. And it was, I think, one of the elements of why they had such a successful restaurant. So, would you say adding the element in hospitality, that the focus is on leadership and management overall, would be a little pinch of salt, little something that's different about Stowe to strategy as a guide?
Yeah, 100%. It's really simple. You can't run a restaurant without people.
Hmm.
And how you treat your people is how they're going to treat your guests. And how you treat your leadership is how they're going to lead. And that's why I talk about that, and Leslie talks about that. I mean, we had these conversations over and over again. Um, it's a people business. Are some things to be replaced by technology and all that? Of course, that's the route we're going. Change is good. We're going to change. Restaurant industry needs it.
Hmm.
Um, we've gotten away with bad behavior for way too long. So leadership, development, and training is, to me, your people are more important than the food coming out. And I'm going to get a lot of shade from chefs, but I'm okay. I'll stand on that all day long, because the day of the yelling chef and all that, and or you see less and less of it, which is good. It's still out there. But if you're not taking care of your people, why were you doing this? Like, if that's my question. Like, if you don't like people, then why do you open a restaurant? But you go to restaurants. I've had good, bad, and the ugly, and
Hmm.
you know, the most important thing is training your people, your culture, how you treat people, how you treat your staff, because that tells me a lot. If I walk into a restaurant, see a manager yelling at a staff member, I'll turn around and leave. Never go
Yeah,
back. You just
yeah.
you're not. That's not hospitable.
No, I like that. The hospitality industry needs to be hospitable to its own people.
Yep.
Um, And that's huge. It's huge. Once again, I mean, I am big. I am a leadership guy. I love leadership. And to hear people who are in leadership positions say you need to focus on your people. Your people are going to create the product. Um, and it's so magical listening to it because I'm thinking about the happy kitchens, the restaurants when I walk in and they got the music playing in the back, people, you know, those restaurants aren't on a time delay. You
Yeah.
know, food's getting moved out quickly. The servers are happy. Everybody's happy. Like you said, there's not a high turnover. And those restaurants are usually the successful ones. Some of these are the local restaurants that I see. Like there's a Mexican restaurant that I go to, and I've gone to it for years, went and hang out over there all the time. And one day I see the owner in the gym, and I've never seen him outside the restaurant. And like we look at each other and we pause, and I was like, "Hey," he's like, "Hey, you coming to get some food today?" I'm like, "Yeah," but it it reminded me that he was a regular person and he still was this great person that he presented himself when you walked into his restaurant and how he dealt with his people. So, I think that is powerful. And I think it is something that, if you got some chefs out there that want to give you shade because of you saying something, because like you said, everybody's everybody, you're not the best maker of everything. There's no one that says you can think you make the best pancakes, but it's really going to be up to me as the person that sits down in this restaurant and eats those pancakes. And if you're really a people person, you're going to take input from your customers. But I think another important thing, you should take input from the people that are working to help build that business too.
Yeah.
So I think that's super
It,
duper helpful.
your people are more important than your customers.
Hmm.
Sorry, you take care of your people first, no matter
Yep.
what. Like this is not even non-negotiable. When me and Leslie, when we run projects, our people come first. Number one, if it is absolutely the most important. And I'll be very honest because somebody's going to be on to see this video and be like, that wasn't Paul in his 20s, and they're right. I was not this way in my 20s. When I first my career, I was a terrible leader. I was bad. Leslie will test this. I was bad. I was not good. I was good with people. I wasn't a good leader.
Mhm.
So that took years for me to get. It really did. That didn't come easy to me. And then one day it clicked. And I credit Leslie with a lot of this because he really helped me get over that hump. Um, and then that's when it clicked. It's like, listen, I'm not gonna, just because I didn't do it right in my 20s does not mean excuse I need to stop doing it now, right? So I just kind of changed my approach, and it worked. It worked pretty quickly. And I realized when I was going through, like, all right, throwing a pan of brownies across the kitchen is not going to help the situation that I'm in. This is a true story, by the way. Um, Not going to help the situation that my brownies didn't come out the way that I asked them to come out. So, you know what I mean? That just didn't work. And then Leslie coached me and got me to where I became a better leader. And then I kind of took that and ran with it.
You know, I can sit and talk about leadership, but I kind of want to touch on, has your stance on people over pride, I'll say, in the industry with chefs, have you run into any setbacks in the consulting business, maybe right now when you've gone in with someone who's like, the first thing you're doing wrong, you're treating your people like crap. And they're like, what? Brownies across the kitchen. Have you ever run across an experience like that?
I'm being a little more blunt with you than I am with our clients, right? My approach to consulting is pretty simple. I walk in there and just listen. It kind of
Mhm.
drives people nuts. I listen and keep asking questions. And I have had clients go, "Are you gonna tell me what to do?" And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna tell you what to do. Are you crazy? Because then I need you to buy in. And how am I gonna do that? It's like I gotta lead them to water. So lead them to water, and because a lot of times I'll be called in. It's like, hey, I have a menu problem. And next thing you know, I'm there training their leadership and staffing and how to train the trainer basically. Um,
Mhm.
and they just don't know. They're so focused on their job. So I haven't run into many. I've had ones where I've sat down with clients and they go, nobody wants to work anymore. I know it's gonna be a tough one. I know, I'm like, all right, nobody wants to work for you. is what
Mhm.
I hear. So if you say to me, or I'm telling you, people, if you're running a restaurant out there and you're telling yourself nobody wants to work anymore, you need to think that through a little better. Because all I hear and all consultants here and all trainers here is nobody wants to work for you. So what are you
Yeah.
doing to cause this? Is it the culture? But I've walked into good places that have said this had good culture. They weren't bad people. They're not bad human beings. They're not bad with their people. They just it's an easy tagline that they think is the reason.
Hmm.
Is there a staffing problem? Absolutely, not arguing that. But running into clients that don't see it, it's our job to bring it to light, but they have to say it. That's what I feel I'm good at. Asking the questions to get the client to go, oh, you know what? Maybe it's this. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
that's that's a wonderful idea. You
Mhm.
know, my goal is to make it their idea. I want to be a mirror to them. I want them to talk to me and just basically they're just vetting through things. A lot of them know what the problem is. They really do. And the ones that have no clue are actually the easiest ones to fix because then I can just show them when if I get to the wall, there's just blankness. Then I'm like, all right, you just don't see it. I can help you there. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
at least I got a blank. It might be hard, but I at least have a blank slate. Trying to
Yeah.
teach somebody how to do something is easier than trying to teach somebody soft skills, right? Hard
Hmm.
skills, how to hold a tray. Soft skills, go to talk to a table that has a complaint. It is much harder to train somebody to talk to a table that has a complaint that's not good at it than somebody that's
Yep.
not good at holding a tray. I can teach you how to hold a tray. I can teach you how to saute. I can teach you how to sous vide. I can teach you any of that stuff. But how you talk and how you hold yourself and how you talk with others and how you talk to the client, in my case, or the guest, that's harder to train. It's trainable,
Mm.
it's just harder. So running into most clients call us too late. By the time
Mm.
we get there, it's almost too late. And that's the hardest thing with working with clients. It's not them pushing back and saying, or me saying, you're just it's you, which I have
Mhm.
said, but I say it in a much nicer way. Um, a lot of times it's, I mean, I can't get into too many details, but I've seen people that are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and I'm just sitting there going, you needed to call me when you were $20,000 in
Yeah.
debt, right? And and this is the hard part about being a consultant. I'm not free,
Yeah.
right? So I'm going there trying to save you money, but yet I'm charging money. You know what I mean? So a
Yeah.
lot of times, if there are a lot of smaller restaurants, me and Leslie just do for free. We're like, listen, I know I say don't charge, I'm not free. We do some stuff for free. And it's just because we want to help people out. At least put them in the right realm or the right track. Because the conversation is
Mhm.
free. That's our tagline. If we have a tagline 1033, it's a conversation is free. I'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Um, difficult people we've run into. I say I can only think of one off the top of my head where I probably shouldn't be saying this on recording, but me and Leslie were like, I don't want to work for that person. We saw the problems ahead, knowing that there was going to be issues. We knew that we were going to be, it's our job to be on the spotlight, and it's on us. But we knew that there were going to be some bumps ahead. So we respectfully declined to work on that project, and didn't like. It's not like we didn't like the person or didn't like the company. We just didn't align. We didn't align, and so
Yeah.
we have to make those hard decisions. Um, the hardest part is telling a client that, like, because I'm very honest, too honest at times. So when we run into those situations where it's we don't align, we'll just bow out. We'll even recommend another consultant if we have to.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a smart thing to do because you are in the business to help people. And I think the biggest thing in leadership is knowing when and how to help someone. And sometimes the best help I can give you is to refer you to someone else that could be better suited to help you.
Yep. Yep.
So I think
Well,
that's a shining example of why, you guys at 1033 Consulting are great to call for business. And not just, once again, I mean, this is not an infomercial for 1033 Consulting or Stover Strategy, but it's not just about food and hospitality. You know, can help with any kind of business. It
Yeah.
just good people all together.
There's three ways, and this is kind of what goes back to like when you ask a question about the cooking and the culinary chefs, blah blah blah. There's three ways, and this one I might get a little shady, but I don't care because I think it's true. I know it's true.
Mhm.
There's three things that you can make more money in this restaurant, but in the restaurant or hospitality business. So if you're running a restaurant, three ways to make more money. It's pretty simple. Butts in the seat. I think it's two and a half, but one kind of goes into two. Butts in the
Mhm.
seat, check average, and new repeat business. You can kind of argue it's in butts in the seat, but I keep it in a separate tier because it has different strategies below it. Now there's 1,000 things below each one, but
Mhm.
everything you do from social media to your staff needs training. Everything needs to do with those three buckets. How are we going to build that check average? How are we going to get butts in the seat? And how are we going to keep these new customers? And I'm going to be honest with you, at the bottom of my barrel of that list is new food. So, it's like, I get it. Like, there's trends and that stuff. I understand that's getting the new repeat, but I think there's other strategies to get them in too. So it's not my number one strategy is to change the menu, tweak the menu. Now, should you run menu engineering and know what your plow horses, your stars, and your dogs are? Um, yeah, you need to know that. That's part of running the business, but that's not your only strategy. And I see it a lot. Restaurants, well, I just got to revamp the menu. Okay, but I still have a terrible experience when I go in there. So none of that has to do with food. It has to do with your people. Most of the time, the front of the house, how they speak to your guests, which I think
Mhm.
comes straight to them. So all your strategies need to focus into something of those three. If that's what you're trying to do is build your sales. But we've gone to places that the sales are great. They don't need help there at all. But they wanted help. They saw that they needed that issue with turnover and culture, and they brought us in to train their staff. And it wasn't training their servers or their bartenders; it was training their management. Actually, we spent a lot of time with their leadership. There was a lot of C-suite, executive, level or ownership level coaching to saying, we're going to train your management, but we're going to have to start with you. Are you okay with that? And we've gotten pushback. Well, I don't need that. It's like, you brought us in to tell you that you do.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so powerful what you guys are doing. And I remember, do a little call back earlier in the show. You said the days of the screaming chef is over, and there are some people sometimes that don't want to believe in those kinds of things, but you're breaking the mold with a mentality like this that you're taking it from screaming chef to, I'm going to say, Smurf population in the kitchen that's happy to do what they're doing. Um, do you think as you're moving forward with this new trend in hospitality, do you think you're going to be met with some challenges from maybe anybody, any big players in the game, and how do you think you're going to face those challenges?
Um, I'm sure I will. I know a lot of chefs my age, and I mean, not my age. There's a lot of chefs I've come in contact with. It's shifting. It is. It's absolutely shifting compared to the way I was trained and how I was brought up. And I do not condone some of the stuff that was done. Remember earlier I said we got away with a lot of bad habits or bad
Hmm.
behaviors. Um, Early in my career, a lot of chefs were rewarded for bad behavior. Let's just be honest with it. I mean, it made some chefs famous. Good for you. But I can tell you, a lot of these TV chefs that are screaming all over the place, they're not like that. They want to have a staff if they were like that, or they're so damn good that they can get away with it. And even then, I don't condone that. But a lot of those don't call me in. They're not going to be calling 1033 in to help them uh, train their staff. I most of the people that bring us in, um, you know, have chefs, but either they're not really chef owners, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
or it's not as chef driven. Chef driven concepts, are highly reliant on chefs. So I don't think I'll run into too much. How I'd react, I don't, I don't give a shit. Just don't care. I don't care what you
Yeah.
think of me. I just don't. I'm too old, too tired to go down that road. I know it works. I seen young chefs work. Yeah, I have. I mean, it's rare, but I've seen it work.
Mhm.
Um, but I've also seen it fail more times than it works. So I just don't care. I think that a lot of that, if you think my mythology of trying to take care of your people is bad, I don't care. And I will say other bad words if you want me to, but I'll kind of keep it
Look,
PG a little bit.
hey, look, in case this ever makes it to PBS, we want to do as little editing as
Bleep it
possible.
out.
But yeah, please, please, I didn't have that button set up today. Please, please.
Yeah.
Oh,
See my chef side come out when I was a cranky old chef.
oh man. But I love to hear it from this angle. And I think it's actually a really good angle from the normal consumer to hear about hospitality and what goes on in the back of the house, because that's the mystery, that's the veil to the consumer, is what happens behind that swinging door. And what you're building, what you guys are building here with this guide and with what you guys are building with 1033 Consulting, I think it's something of possibly a new legacy that you guys are going to leave. So if you could talk to 20-year-old Paul, or brownies across the kitchen Paul, what advice would you give to him at this point looking back?
Slap in the back of the head first. He's gonna make a lot of mistakes. Number
Mhm.
one, don't be scared to make a mistake. Uh, don't be scared to admit when you're wrong, and don't be scared to stand up for what you believe. I made all three of those mistakes multiple times with staff members, with owners, with myself. I'm a very loyal person. I really am. That got me in trouble a few times too. Um, I would just honestly say, don't be scared to make mistakes. Don't be scared to learn from those mistakes. And um, gosh, I just wish that I knew now how to treat people then, because I wasn't a good boss. Just flat out wasn't. That took time. Cooking came easy for me. To this day, you give me something that's, I wasn't trained on the sous vide world era, right? But you give me
Mhm.
something and I can figure it out, and especially when it comes to food. Food came easy to me. The leadership did not. That was a little bit of time. And I wish that I got a mentor in my 30s. I wish I had a mentor in my 20s. Actually, that's what I'd say. Get a damn mentor. Go find one.
Man, that's powerful. Man, that's as Jerry Springer used to do his final thought. Like that was it. Like if I could just like cut, done, print, go do that. And I think that is very powerful with this guide. Like I said, this guide is not always about hospitality. As I've been listening to you talk, I've got, as in consultants, we're always working with other projects. We have our own projects on the side. And I'm thinking, oh wait, I need to use that. I'm trying to build this one over here. That's really good. Three things to take with this for me. So I have one request before we wrap this up. We're here on Stoves of Strategy in what I call the kitchen. Can you tell us about this wonderful stove behind you? It's got like everything that says somebody's about to make some pancakes or some shortbread bread. I
It's
love
that.
that.
Yeah, it's actually functional too. It's an old wood stove. It's a Crawford, a Union Crawford. The research I've done on it, it is it I think it's from 1911, around that area. 1920 is the latest. I got it from a friend of mine in Danvers, not Danvers, Massachusetts, somewhere in Massachusetts. Um, he he grew up within his home. He remember as a kid having food on the stove. Like it was
Oh
in his
wow.
house growing up. And he told me the story that they got it, his family got it from a famous writer, a female writer in New England, and I forgot her name. She was in Massachusetts, um, and they eventually converted it to propane, so actually it's a propane one now.
Hmm.
So when he was like, I'm going to put it on marketplace. Like, no, you're not. I'm going to come get this behemoth. The thing weighs. It is so heavy. It weighs. I have a 40-inch Wolf. It probably weighs the same as much as that dang thing. So it's a French top stove, and it's a old wood burning stove, and it's just freaking cool. So right now
Mhm.
it's just an anchor. Make sure nobody steals anything in my office. But eventually, that's I'm like we talked about earlier. I'm me and you offline. I'm building a prep kitchen in my basement just because I do a lot of processing, and we have a little farm here. So eventually, that's going to get hooked back up. That's gonna be operational again.
That's so cool. I can't wait to come out and have something prepared on that
Mm-hmm.
delicious thing. Oh man, I am looking at that and I'm thinking cornbread and some fried chicken or something just takes me back to my times as a kid in the country with my grandma. So um this has been wonderful. Just to wrap it all up, you are treading into new ground. You and Leslie are treading into new ground in the realm of hospitality, changing the way the landscape sees leadership and changing the way that this industry is going to treat its people, which I think overall is going to lend to a better industry for the consumer, the worker, the chef, and maybe the chef owner or the owner, period. So,
Yeah, it's what we want to do. We want to make other people money.
man, that's it. Do you have any shout outs that you want to give to the people? Do you want to tell anybody any links, any websites, Instagrams?
Just hit 1033.com, 1033consulting.com. There you go. I got to do the
There you
whole one.
go.
That's will get mad at me if I don't say the whole one correctly.
Do the marketing,
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah, I know. That's not. I let Leslie do the marketing stuff. I just, I let he's the one that's good at all that. I am the pretty part of 1033. I'm here for my looks. That's about it.
There you go. Well, you're
And my
doing a
wings.
great job.
And my wings.
You're doing a great job on both of those. I've been thinking about it since the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But shout outs to Leslie, and he's going to totally enjoy this, seeing this side of the interview. And I think this is super duper cool what you guys are putting together. We've got more interviews coming. We've got so much coming for you guys at 1033 Consulting, Stove to Strategy. So just keep paying attention, keep looking. There's going to be more coming. And I will see you next time in the kitchen. Thanks again, Paul.